Assalamu alaikum. Hello students. So today we'll take up one more important topic. We have finished the skeletal system, the 1 and 2, as well as the joints we discussed in the previous classes. And today we'll discuss the muscular system. So if you know that the muscle is made up of muscle cells, muscle is a tissue, as you know, is made up of muscle cells. So the muscle cells are specialized contractile cells. These cells are very much specialized. They are not like other cells, and they have capacity to contract as well as relax. Okay, they can expand as well as they can relax to a certain extent. So that's why it is specialized, so that they can become larger and shorter. So hence these are also called as muscle fiber, because they are not like cells. They are very long structured. Okay, so that's why they are called as muscle fibers. Okay, so they are specialized contractile cells and they are called as muscle fibers because they are very long. There are four characteristics association with the muscle tissue. So how to identify the muscle tissue? It is by four features. So these are the four features with which you can identify. One is the excitability. Excitability means the tissue can receive and respond to stimuli. Whenever nerves innervating a muscle, they stimulate, the muscle can contract, okay, and pull the skeletal system. And as well as when the nerve innervation is finished, then it can relax. So this is called as excitability. Tissue can receive as well as respond to stimuli. The second function is the contractility. As I said, when they are excited, then they have the capacity to contract. They have the capacity to contract. Tissue can shorten and thicken. So whenever the muscle contracts, they become short as well thicken. And when they relax, they go back to their normal size. The third feature is they have the capacity to extensibility. Tissue can lengthen. When they can shorten, they also have the capacity to lengthen. Okay. Then the fourth feature is the elasticity. So they can become long as well as short, and they recoil back to their normal position. This is called as the elasticity. The tissue returns to its resting state, recoil. Okay, this is called as the elasticity. They can extend, they can contract, as well as they can be stimulated by a nerve, as well as once the stimulation is over, they return back to their normal size. That is the recoiling. That is called as the elasticity, the extension and the relaxation and returning back to the normal position. That is called as the elasticity. So these are some of the features of the muscular tissue. Now coming to the functions of the muscular system or the muscular tissue, what are the functions? Again, they are divided into four main functions. One is the movement. So all the movements of the body, we have already studied the skeleton. We have studied the axial skeleton as well as the appendicular skeleton. So we have studied the bones, but they don't move unless they are moved. Okay, so they are moved by these muscular system, muscular fibers or the muscle fibers or the muscle. Okay, so all the movement is given by the muscles, even though the whole skeleton is standing there, but it cannot move unless the muscle helps in the movement. So both voluntary as well as involuntary. Some muscles, they act on our will. That is called as voluntary muscles. They are all skeletal muscles which are attached to the skeleton. They are called as the voluntary muscles. Then there are muscles inside the other tissues, like in case of the intestine, in case of the lungs, there are muscle tissue, but they are not under our will. We cannot control. We cannot expand the intestine or something like that. The stomach we cannot expand or relax, but there is muscle within them also. Okay, so that is called as involuntary muscle, which are not under our control. They are called as the smooth muscle fibers. Okay, so the movement is given by the muscle and they can be voluntary as well as involuntary. The second is they maintain the posture. So we have seen the skeletal system give the structure, but the posture is given to stand erect. So all the muscles should be contracting, and there some muscle contract, some relax, and they all give the posture to the body. Without these muscles, the skeleton will fall down. Even though there is the whole skeleton is present, but it cannot maintain the posture unless the muscles can contract and relax at the same time. Okay, then the third function is supporting soft tissue within the body cavities. If you see, as I said, the small intestine, the best example is the stomach. Stomach has a very thick wall of muscle. Okay, so all these are supported by the soft tissue within the body cavities by these smooth muscle. They are called as smooth muscle fibers. Then they also help in guarding. They guard the entrance and exit of the body. As we know, the mouth closes as well as open. So the mouth always kept closed by the muscle contraction. Similarly, we have the eyes, we have the nostrils. Okay, so all these are kept closed and they guard. If there is any kind of danger, then suddenly close. Okay, so that is called as guarding. So they help in the movement of the body, maintain posture, support the body, as well as help in guarding of the entrance of the different sites. Now coming to the types of muscles. As I was telling, the muscle can be skeletal muscle. When it is attached to bones, then it is called a skeletal muscle because it is attached to the skeleton. We have studied the skeletal system. So if there is the muscle is attached to the skeletal system, then it is called a skeletal muscle. Okay. Then there is a special muscle in the heart that is called as the cardiac muscle. Cardiac, the other name for the heart is cardia. So the special muscle in the heart has a very special muscle which can stimulate itself as well as it can act as nerve also. It can conduct. Okay. So it has a very special muscle which is not present in anywhere except the heart. So it is called as cardiac muscle. Okay. Then similarly, I said the intestine, as you can see here, this is a tube, intestinal tube. So it has a wall, thick wall made up of muscle, as well as the connective tissue will be there, but a thick muscle wall is there. Similarly, as I said, the stomach is lined by a very thick muscle. Okay. The uterus, it is also lined by a thick muscle. So all these are guarded by smooth muscle. Okay, so these are the three types of muscle: skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, as well as smooth muscle. These are three types of muscle you can see in the body. Comparison of the muscle types. So if we want to differentiate between these three muscle, how do you differentiate? Okay, so the skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscle fibers. So these can be differentiated on the location where they are present. As I said, in the cardiac muscle, they are present in the heart. So similarly, skeletal muscle, they are attached to the bone. Smooth muscle, I said, the intestine. So the location is a very important component. Then the function differs from each of them. All the three muscles, they differ in their function. So they differ in their function, as well as the control mode is also different. Some are voluntary, as I said, some are involuntary. Okay, then the shape of the muscle also differs from each type. There is different in shape, as well as the characteristic feature with which you can identify. So those features are also different. So we'll go one by one. First, going to the location. So as I said, the skeletal muscle, as I said, the skeletal muscle is called a skeletal muscle because it is attached to the skeleton, the skeletal system attached to the bone. So that's why it is called a skeletal muscle. Okay. So now coming to the function of the skeletal muscle, it, as I said, it helps in the movement of the bones, the different parts of the skeletal system. Then the control mode. These muscles are under our control. If you want to lift something, from the ground. So our hand will go down and it will pick up. So it is under our control. So if you want, we can do it. If you don't want, we cannot. We won't do it. Okay, this is called as voluntary. So this is called as voluntary control. Okay, then coming to the shape. If you see the skeletal muscle, it is a long tube. As I said, the muscle cells are called as the muscle fiber because they are long tubes, long tube like structures. So they are long, as well as slender means thin, as well as non-branching, they don't branch, and they will have multi-nucleated, many nucleus. Usually a single cell will have single nucleus, but here in the skeletal muscle it will be having multi-nucleated. So the characteristic feature is, one is they are multi-nucleated, so each cell will have multiple nucleus, many nucleus. The second feature is it is striated. If you see here, there are dark bands and light bands. So there are dark bands as well as light bands. So this is called as striations, light and dark bands. Though these are the two important characteristic features with which you can identify the skeletal muscle. Okay. So first one is it is attached to the bone. It helps in the movement of the bone. It is under our control, voluntary. The shape is long, slender, and non-branching. And the characteristic feature is it is striated with dark and light bands, and it is multinucleated. Now we'll compare this skeletal muscle with that of the cardiac muscle. So here the skeletal muscle is attached to all the bones, so it is near the bones. But the cardiac muscle is present only in the heart. As I said, it is seen only in the heart. That's why it is called as the cardiac muscle. The function is it helps in the beating of the heart, the rhythmic beating of the heart. Lub and dub is done by these muscles because of the contraction and relaxation of the whole heart. Okay, so this beating of the heart, it helps in the beating of the heart. Then the control mode is involuntary. We cannot control or decrease or increase the heartbeat under our control. It is not under our control. So it is called as involuntary. So even the nerve supply differs. Whenever it is involuntary, it is supplied by the autonomic nervous system. When it is voluntary, it is supplied by the skeletal nerves. Okay. Or they are also called as the spinal nerves. Okay. So this is involuntary, so it is supplied by the autonomic nervous system. So we cannot control it. Okay. Then if you see the shape, it is slender and as well as long, but it is divided. It divides or branches. It branches into many limbs. Okay, so this has the capacity to branch. Here it is non-branching. It is a single long tube, but here it branches. Okay, and there will be usually one or two nuclei. So here it is multinucleated, but usually here it will be one nucleus, sometimes two nuclei. And they are also striated, but the striations is lighter compared to the skeletal muscle. Here also striations are there, but they are light. Now compare this cardiac muscle with the smooth muscle. So as I said before, it will present in the walls of the internal organs, the intestine, the stomach, as well as even in the skin. So what is the function? They help in the movement of the internal organs or the content within. In the intestine, the food will move by peristaltic movement. That movement is given by the smooth muscle. So there will be contraction and relaxation of the different parts of the intestine, which will help in the movement of the internal food or whatever is present, especially even in the stomach. The all the grinding and everything will be taking place in the stomach because of the muscle contraction, that is the smooth muscle. Then this is also involuntary. Smooth muscle is also involuntary, just like that of the cardiac muscle. We cannot control the movement of the stomach or the intestine or some other organs. So it is also involuntary. So it is also supplied by the autonomic nervous system. Then if you see the shape of this smooth muscle, it is spindle shape. Here it is long, slender, long tube-like, but here it is spindle shape. In the middle, spindle shape means in the middle it will be broad and it has narrow ends. narrow ends, and it will be always uninucleated. So always one nucleus, only one nucleus, and they are not striated, no striation, dark and light bands are not there. So this smooth muscle has some features of the cardiac muscles and some features of that of the skeletal muscle. Okay, so this is how it is present. Okay, so this is the difference between the skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and the smooth muscle. Now we'll study the skeletal muscles, where they are present and how they are present, what are their names. Okay, some of the important muscles we'll study one by one. Coming to the structure of the skeletal muscle. Before we go into details about the names of the different muscle, we have to know the structure of the skeletal muscle. We said they are like long tubes. If you see here, this is the cross section of a muscle. Okay, so you can see here small fibers. All these are the, so this is the whole structure. This is called as the muscle bundle fiber. This is the muscle. The whole thing is the muscle here. So out of this, so there are small groups. These are called as muscle bundle fibers, and within the muscle fibers there are the muscle fibers are, but these are the bundles of the muscle fibers, and here is the individual fiber. And if we go into the individual fiber, there will be, again there will be myofibrils, and within the myofibrils there will be myofilaments. So whole thing is called as the muscle, within which there will be muscle fiber. So this is the muscle bundle fiber. Okay, within that there will be multiple muscle fibers. Okay, and within this multiple myofibrils will be present. So this is one individual muscle fiber, myofibril, and within the myofibril there will be multiple myofilaments, myoactin and myosin. These are called as the actin and myosin. You might have heard about this. Okay, so this is the complete picture of how the skeletal muscle will be present. Okay. Now coming to some more details of this skeletal muscle cells, as I said before, it will be cylindrical, long tube-like structure. This is the shape of this muscle fiber here, one single muscle fiber. So here will be this muscle fiber, will be individual muscle fiber. This is the whole muscle, and within that there will be muscle fiber bundles. Within that will be the muscle fiber. So this is one individual muscle fiber. So these are single cell. Okay, this is one cell. This is how it looks like. This one muscle fiber will look like this. Okay, these are, they are not like shaped like a cell rounded, but they are cylindrical, long structure in shape. Each cell will be called as fiber because they are long fiber like structure. They don't look like a cell, so that's why they are called as the muscle fiber. The cells have several nuclei situated just under the sarcolemma. So the covering of these cells is by a covering. This is called as the sarcolemma. Okay, just like we have the cell membrane. So similarly, the the muscle fiber cell membrane will be called as the sarcolemma. So this is the covering outside. So this is the sarcolemma. The cells show well-marked transverse dark and light bands. As I said before, these are the dark bands, light band, dark bands, light bands. So they will be, it will be striated. So that's why it is called as striated with the dark and light bands. The sarcoplasm is the cytoplasm of the muscle fiber. The cytoplasm which is flowing within this cell fiber, that will be called as the, it has a special name called as the sarcoplasm. Sarco means muscle. The other name for the muscle is the sarcoplasm. So that's why it is sarcolemma, sarcoplasm, everything. Okay, because it is related to the skeletal muscle. The cytoplasm of the muscle fiber, it contains bundles of myofibrils. As you can see here, these are the myofibrils. Okay, so here you can see the same thing has been cut here, and here you can see the myosin and actin filaments. These are called as the myofibrils with the actin and myosin. The myosin are the thick band the fibers here, and the thin fiber filaments are called as the actin. The myofibril consists of the filaments of the actin as well as myosin, as I showed you. So this is the myosin and this is the actin. So these are the myofibrils. Now coming to the types of muscle fibers. What are the different types of skeletal muscle fibers. We are talking just now, right now, about only the skeletal muscle. We are not talking about the cardiac muscle. We are not talking about the smooth muscle. We are just talking about the skeletal muscle, which is attached to the skeleton. Okay, so within this skeletal muscle, there are different types. Some are called as circular, like the orbicularis oculi. Near the mouth, there is a muscle called as the orbicularis oculi, which will be circular around the oral cavity. If you see here, the oculi is the eye. Here there is called as the orbicularis oris. Oris means oral cavity. Around the oral cavity, it will be the oris. Here it will be the orbicularis oculi, eye. Okay. So these are the circular muscle fibers. This is the orbicularis oculi. Then we have the convergent, like the pectoralis major muscle, one of the muscle here in the chest. So it has a big origin and it becomes convergent. All these fibers come to a certain point, one point. So this is called as convergent muscle, pectoralis major. Here is the this muscle. Big muscle origin, the insertion is become narrow to one particular point. So this is called as the convergent. The third is the parallel muscle, where the muscles will be all parallel to each other, like the strap muscle. One of the example for the strap muscle is the sartorius. There is a muscle here in the lower limb. This is called a strap muscle. It is also called as the Taylor's mm, muscle. Okay, because it looks like a Taylor's tape. Okay, long tape-like structure. So that is called as the sartorius, which is the example for the parallel muscle. Okay, so here you can see the same thing as it's shown here with long fibers. So this is the strap muscle, which is one of the example is the sartorius muscle. Here is the name and here is the example for each. Then we have the spindle fusiform muscle, like the biceps brachii. Biceps brachii, this is the muscle here, which is called as the biceps brachii, which looks like a fusiform muscle called as the biceps brachii. Then we have pinnate muscle. Pinnate muscle. So pinnate muscle can be unipinnate, bipinnate, as well as multipinnate. Multipinnate. Okay. So unipinnate. This is the bipinnate muscle. This is the bipinnate rectus femoris. There is a muscle here with fibers going in two directions. And here is the unipinnate muscle. Extensor digitorum longus. All the fibers are in one direction. That is called as unipinnate. So here is the example of the same. Then we have the bipinnate. The fibers are in two directions. And then we have the multipinnate here, deltoid muscle, which has many direction fibers, like in different directions. So this is called as the multipinnate fibers. Okay, so these are the different types of skeletal muscle. One is the circular muscle, then we have the convergent muscle, then we have the parallel muscle. Parallel muscle, again there are two types, strap muscle as well as the spindle or fusiform type of muscle. Then we have the fourth is the pinnate muscle, which can be unipinnate, bipinnate as well as multipinnate. Coming to the types of muscle according to the shape, further studying about the same. The circular muscle fibers, as I showed you, this is the circular. The fascicles are arranged in concentric rings. They are arranged in the form of rings, and they help in closure of the eye, as well as I said here, there will be orbicularis oris. So that will help in the closure of the mouth. Okay, so the fascicles fibers are arranged in concentric rings. The muscles with this arrangement surround external body opening. Wherever there are openings, like the ear, the mouth, nose, ear, anal canal, everywhere, there will be circular muscle fibers. Then we have the convergent muscle. The muscle has a broad origin and its facial converging towards a single tendon of the insertion. As we said here, this is the converging muscle. This is the pectoralis muscle. Then we have the parallel muscle. In a parallel arrangement, the length of the fascicle run parallel to the long axis of the muscle. Such muscles are either strap like the sartorius muscle. Here we saw the parallel muscle, sartorius muscle of the thigh, or spindle shape with an external belly like the biceps muscle of the arm. Here there are also the biceps muscle, which is fusiform, slightly different from the strap muscle. Then we have the pinnate muscle. Pinnate muscle. The fascicles are short and they are arranged obliquely to a tendon that runs at the length of the muscle. Pinnate muscles come from three forms. If you see here, this is the tendon, and the muscles are not parallel to it, but parallel to each other, and they are slightly oblique to the tendon. They are oblique to the tendon. This is the tendon, and these muscles are oblique to the tendon, and they are all parallel to each other, and they are going in one direction. Then it is called as the unipinnate muscle, unipinnate, in which the fascicle is inserted into only one side of the tendon, as in the extensor digitorum longus muscle of the leg, as we saw here, extensor digitorum. So here is the extensor digitorum muscle, unipinnate muscle. So all the muscle fibers are going and attached to the tendon in one direction only. The other side is empty. Then in case of bipinnate, the tendon is in the center and the fibers are in two directions. Bipinnate, in which the fascicles insert into the tendon from the opposite sides. The example is the rectus femoris of the thigh in the bipinnate. As we saw here, this is the muscle with two direction fibers. Here you can see here the fibers in two directions. Okay, this is the inside, middle is the tendon. So here you can see here, this is the tendon and two directional fibers. Here there is only one side, the other side is free. Here there are two side fibers. In multipinnate, which looks like many feathers side by side with all their quills inserted into one large tendon, the deltoid muscle is the multipinnate. This is the example of the multipinnate. If you can see here, there are many long tendons within which the fibers are in different directions. So you can see here they are in different. This is the example for the multipinnate. The best example is the deltoid muscle, which is present here. So this is how it looks like. Okay, so these are the types of muscle depending on the shape. Okay. Okay, so here again some examples. The three pinnate muscles, unipinnate, bipinnate, and multipinnate. Here the extensor digitorum, all the fibers are only one direction and oblique to the tendon. Okay, if all the muscle fibers are on the same side of the tendon, then it is called as unipinnate. Then we have the bipinnate, where the fibers are in two directions. Two, bi means two. Then multipinnate, because it is multi, so the fibers are in different directions. Okay, multipinnate, the example, the better to appreciate here. So the fibers, so you can see in different directions. So this is the multipinnate fiber. Okay, now coming to the further the examples for the same. One is the circular muscles, which are the orbicularis oculi. Here this is the oris. Here will be the oculi, eye. For the mouth, it will be the oral. So this is the circular muscle, which is oris. Then we have the convergent muscle, the pectoralis major muscle. Here you can see here. Then we have the parallel muscle, which is the sartorius. This is the sartorius. Then we have the unipinnate muscle, extensor digitorum longus in the leg. Then we have the multipinnate, which is the deltoid muscle here. Then bipinnate muscle, rectus femoris. Here is the rectus femoris. It is the same as been shown in the enlarged form. These are the different types of muscles depending on their shape. Now coming to the parts of the muscle. Before we go into details of the muscle, we should know what are the parts of the muscle. What we call it as origin, insertion, belly, tendon. What are these terms? When we call a muscle is attached or taking origin. Okay. So origin is usually the proximal attachment side, generally on the bone, which does not move during muscle action. Fixed end. Okay, so if you see here, this is the muscle. So this is one of the muscle of the lower limb. This is called as the soleus muscle in the leg. Origin is this part. Origin is from the two bones, tibia and fibula. This is the tibia and fibula. So this is called as origin. Okay, so why it is called as origin? Because this part will not move. Whenever the muscle contract, it will pull this part up. Okay, and help in the movement of the foot. So this is called as insertion. So this is the origin of the muzzle, this is the insertion. Why it is called as origin? This attached part which does not move, this part of the muzzle doesn't move, but it will move the inserted part. So it will pull this muzzle bone upwards, and it will help in the movement of the foot. So this is called as the insertion. This is the difference. Origin is usually the proximal attachment. Proximal means toward the center of the body. That is called as proximal attachment. Generally on the bone which does not move during muzzle action. It is fixed end. Insertion is usually the distal attachment. Distal means away from the center of the body, generally on the bone which moves during muzzle action. So that is the movable end. As I showed you, this is the origin because it does not move, but this part moves, so it is called as the insertion. Then what is belly? Belly is the fleshy contractile part of the muzzle. This part where there is full muzzle. In this muzzle here you can see this is the gastrocnemius muscle. So this thick muzzle, this is called as the belly. Belly. So this origin of this muzzle is the from the femur. So this is attached part. It doesn't move, but the insertion part here it will move. Okay. So the origin, insertion, and belly. Then we have something called as tendon. What is meant by tendon? The fibrous part of the muscle. If you see here, this whole thing is not muscle, but a part becomes, if you see here, this becomes fibrous. It will become whitish. So this is called as fibrous muscle. Here you can see here, this is a thick muscle belly, but the lower part, this is called as the tendon, Achilles tendon. Why it is called as tendon? Because it becomes the fibrous part. Even though this is the muscle, but before it get attached to any bone, it gets fibrous. Here if you see, here this is the fibrous part and this is the fibrous part. Wherever it is attached, it will not be attached by the bone, by the fibrous tissue. So this is called as the tendon. So the fibrous part of the muscle will be called as the tendon. So hope now you know the origin, insertion, belly, and tendon. Examples are the biceps muscle, scapula is the origin. In case of the biceps muscle, scapula is the origin, proximal end, and radius is the insertion. We'll see that muscle okay later. So this is about the parts of the muscle: the origin, insertion, belly, and tendon. So did you get it? So till here, if you have any doubts, you can ask me now. If not, we'll further move forward. So do you have any doubts till here? I think you don't have any doubts. Okay. Now coming to the groups of muscles. What are the groups? The muscles are many. So they are grouped into the muscles of the face, muscles of the neck, muscle of the trunk, thorax and abdomen, then muscles of the shoulder girdle as well as the upper limb, then the muscles of the pelvic girdle and the lower limb. All these are the muscles. They are grouped into different regions. Okay, so these are called as groups of muscles: muscles of face, neck, trunk, upper limb, lower limb, like that. Okay, so we'll study these muscles by group by group. First will be the muscles of the face and neck. Muscles of the face and neck. So what are the muscles which we face in the we have in the face as well as in the neck? There are four important muscles here. Okay, there are multiple muscles. There are many muscles in the face, but we'll talk about four important muscles. Even though there are many muscles, we will talk about four important. One is the orbicularis oculi. So here I said this rounded muscle, this circular muscle fiber. This is called as the orbicularis oculi. Then we have the orbicularis oris. So this is near the oral cavity. As I said, these are the circular muscle fibers which are helping in closure of the any openings, orifice in the body. Okay, so they will help in closure of the mouth, the eye, everything. So orbicularis oris, and this muscle is called as the orbicularis oculi. The third important muscle is the one muscle called as the buccinator. Buccinator. So here you can see here. So this is the muscle here called as the buccinator. Buccinator, which helps in blowing of the air. Blowing of the air is done by this buccinator muscle here. Then we have muscles of mastication. Mastication means chewing. Which muscles help in the chewing? There are muscles of facial expression, there are muscles of mastication. So there are multiple muscles. Apart from this, these are the three muscles: orbicularis oculi, oris, as well as buccinator, as well as there are many muscles. Temporalis muscle. Here we have the occipital frontalis, levator papillae superialis, and other muscles. Mentalis. Okay, all these muscles are the muscles of facial expression. But there are four muscles which help in chewing. Okay, one is the temporalis muscle. This is the temporalis muscle, which is the muscle of mastication. The second is the masseter. This is said to be the strongest muscle because it helps in breaking down of even bones when we chew. So this muscle will act very strong and it helps even in breaking of the bones when we chew. So that's why this is said to be one of the strongest muscle in the body, masseter muscle. So this is the temporalis, then we have the masseter, then deep inside this muscle, this is called as sternocleidomastoid, this is the muscle of the neck. Deep to that, there will be two muscles called as medial pterygoid and lateral pterygoid. These are the four muscles which help in the mastication, means chewing. Temporalis muscle, then we have the masseter muscle, and deep inside we have the medial pterygoid and lateral pterygoid. So this is how we chew. So these masseter muscle, which is helping in chewing of even the bones, will be done. Okay. Now coming to the muscles of the neck. So what are the muscles which are there in the neck? One is the very strong muscle called as the sternocleidomastoid muscle. This is the sternocleidomastoid muscle, which help in moving of the head from side to side. Okay, then we have a muscle in the just in the back of the neck. This is called as trapezius, a very large muscle which will even cover the not only the neck but even the back. This is called as trapezius muscle. So this is sternocleidomastoid and the trapezius muscle. They lie in the side of the neck. Both this sternocleidomastoid lie in the side and trapezius side as well as back. There are multiple small muscles, but we'll not go into all details of these small muscles. We'll go to the next group of muscles. These are the group of muscles in the trunk. So very important muscle in the trunk, in the thoracic region, will be called as the intercostal muscle between the ribs. So costa means rib. So intercostal means in between the ribs there are muscles. These are called as the intercostal muscles. Okay. The space between the two adjacent ribs is called as the intercostal space, and the muscles within them they are called as the intercostal muscles. There are three layers of muscle fill in the intercostal space. There are three muscles actually. When you cut it and see, there are three muscles. So superficial to deep, one is the external intercostal muscle. External intercostal. Deep to that, there is the internal intercostal muscle. And deepest among all these three is the innermost intercostal muscle. So there are three muscles: external intercostal, internal intercostal, as well as the innermost intercostal muscle. So what is the muscle? What is the action of these muscles? These muscles help in the respiration. Respiration. Whenever the lungs expand and contract, the main muscle of respiration will be the diaphragm. Along with that, these intercostal muscle also help in the expansion and the relaxation of the lungs. Okay, so that's why it helps in the respiration. But as I said, the main muscle which will help in the respiration will be diaphragm. Diaphragm will be just below here, which separate the thoracic region from the abdominal cavity. So this is called as the diaphragm. This is a picture seen from below, from the abdomen. All the organs have been removed, and now you are seeing the diaphragm. This is how it looks like. Diaphragm is a thin musculo-tendinous structure that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. As I said, it will present here between the thoracic and abdominal cavity. So it separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. So this will be called as the diaphragm here. So this is the diaphragm. This is how it looks like. The function of the diaphragm, as I said, it is the main respiratory muscle. So this is the main muscle which moves. When it moves up and down, it helps in the respiration. Almost 70% of the work done for the respiration is by this muscle called as the diaphragm. So it is the mainly inspiratory. So when you want to inspire, take air inside, then this diaphragm will contract and come down, and it pulls the lung so that they can expand and the air can leak inside. It also compresses the abdomen to increase the intra-abdominal pressure for the abdominal straining. So whenever it comes down, it increases the abdominal pressure. Why it is important? This is important during defecation, urination, vomiting, sneezing, coughing, labor, as well as lifting heavy weights. Whenever you want to increase the abdominal pressure, then you hold your breath. Okay, then you take a deep inspiration and hold your breath so that the diaphragm come down, and it increases the abdominal cavity pressure for defecation, urination, vomiting, sneezing, coughing, labor, as well as even during lifting heavy weights. You hold your breath, okay, so that the abdominal pressure is increased. So this is how it looks like. This is how it is present actually. So above will be the thorax and below will be abdomen. So both these cavities are separated by this diaphragm. But there are some structures which will be traversing or traveling between the thorax and abdomen, passes through the diaphragm. They pierce the diaphragm and pass through. Which are those structures? One is the most anterior will be the inferior vena cava. Okay, which will be carrying the blood from the abdominal cavity and lower lips back into the heart. This is called as the inferior vena cava. The second important structure passing through will be the abdominal, the esophagus. Second is the esophagus. Okay, then we have the third structure, that is the aorta, abdominal aorta. From the thoracic aorta, the blood is carried into the abdomen through the abdominal aorta. So the aorta will be also piercing. So they will be piercing. The inferior vena cava will be piercing at the level of T8. The esophagus will be piercing at the level of T10, and the aorta will be piercing the diaphragm at the level of T12. T8, T10, T12, and it is called as VOA. Okay, Voice of America. V stand for vena cava, that is inferior vena cava. O, usually the British English in the British English they write esophagus starting from O, OE esophagus. Okay, then VOA stand for aorta. So these are the three structures: VOA, vena cava, esophagus, and aorta at the level of T8, T10, and T12. Okay. Should we stop here? Are you tired? How many slides are remaining? Not more out there. Okay, we'll come. Okay, so you want to stop? Okay, so we'll stop here, and in the next lecture we'll continue with the same. Okay, so for the examination, so till here all the lectures up to whatever I covered till here, up to the diaphragm. In this lecture, up to diaphragm, not next, but up to diaphragm we'll have this half of this lecture will be there, as well as previous I think 4 lectures, right? 3 for the skeleton and 1 for the introduction. Okay, 4 plus this half lecture, 4.5 lectures will be there for the examination, for the midterm examination. Okay, which is next week, as you said, next Sunday. Okay, so if you have any doubts regarding this, you can ask me now.